I mean, Big Pharma didn't always have negative connotations surrounding it. So when do you think this turning point was in the Big Pharma industry? Could you walk
Well,
us through this?
I think if you call it Big Pharma, that's already, I think, after that change, in the sense that we have started to call, I mean, we have Big Pharma, we have Big Tobacco, we have Big Oil, we have Big Food, and we call them like that because they have become such a global monopolistic corporations that serve their own purpose, and in general are kind of almost, I mean, they're so powerful that it's very difficult for policymakers to affect them, also because they are global corporations, and policymakers often only have a national or regional or local mandates and electorate. So I think the word big before pharma is already kind of a relatively recent phenomenon, when more and more people in the health sector realize that what they do and how they behave is not conducive for public health. But I was actually, after the talk last week, talking a little bit more with Nick Darden, or Dearden, I'm totally sure how we pronounce his name. I haven't asked him. Because he, in his book, that I've only now started to read, actually, does a little bit of research on the earlier periods, and where he says, well, even in the 60s, 70s, the pharmaceutical companies were not really all that productive for public health. I mean, there have been, and this has been almost, I mean, it's not a battle, but between policymakers and the industry, is kind of trying to influence policy where to make it as conducive as possible for pharmaceutical companies to make money. And apparently that was already ongoing in the 70s and 80s as well. But what I think is very clear, if you see the switch from the concept of blockbuster drugs, for instance, is really something that was coined, I think, only in the 1990s. And blockbuster drugs were initially coined for drugs that reached $1 billion US sales. That, back in the 90s was huge, and there were very few of those blockbusters. And you saw that the industry, once they realized that this was possible, and this reflects back to the much later comment of Goldman Sachs. How did you get a blockbuster drug? That was for chronic diseases. Chronic diseases where people needed to take medicine every day for the rest of their life. That is as opposed to infectious diseases where usually you have a cure.